Patrick works in the southeast corner of BC, and the last time I saw him in the summer last year when we were there doing their mag audit, I was able to sit down with Patrick, and he showed me all the work that he was doing for this glove project and the research that happened, and I was really quite impressed. So I had asked Patrick to share all the work that he had done and where CANFOR is going with their gloves here. So I'm going to hand it over to Patrick, and away you go. Oh, Patrick's muted. You're going to have to unmute Patrick. And
yeah, absolutely. Could you see my screen there?
yeah, looking good.
Right on. Yeah. So thanks, Bill, for having me on here. This is great. So good morning or afternoon wherever you. Sorry. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. So I did get invited to share our experience with the lessons learned regarding our recent hand safety initiative at CANFOR. So I want to quickly talk a little bit about CANFOR, who we are, and our values. So CANFOR is a global leader supplying sustainable and innovative quality wood-based products with operations in Canada, the US, and Sweden. Safety is our number one value at CANFOR. Partnering with another manufacturing company, so Superior Gloves, which is another Canadian company that shares similar values, has allowed us to enhance the hand safety in our operations in Canada, innovate new products, and change the way we approach hand safety. So I want to talk a little bit about hand injuries. So since 2021, hand injuries have been our top recurring injury at CANFOR. So over 60% of our medical incidents were hand injuries. So after a detailed review of these incidents, over half the injuries could have been prevented by using specialized gloves. Research does show that implementing cut-resistant gloves for most of the tasks that we perform will reduce hand injuries. Just a quick look at this the performance standards, just to give a little bit of an understanding on this. So when you're looking at cut resistance, again, there's no cut proof. That's just a resistance. A1 is kind of like your least amount of cut resistance, and then the highest cut resistance you can get is ANSI A9. So that's kind of for our extreme cut hazards. And I'll talk about some of the gloves that we ended up landing on for different types of tasks, and I'll give you an understanding. For impact, it's 1, 2, and 3. So 3 is the most protection there, and then there's other performance standards such as abrasion, puncture, and heat that we'll discuss a little bit as well. The hand safety assessment process. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we had to do here, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. So I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this one, but we estimated that the hand safety assessment process was going to take about 6 months to work through. We're actually currently entering our 6th month here, so we're just kind of at the tail end of all this. But number one, we started by reviewing hand injury statistics and defining a goal of 0 hand injuries across our Canadian operations. On-site hazard and risk assessments at two of the sawmills and the Kootenays here where I live, to gather some baseline data, conducted some glove trials and defined new gloves based on detailed feedback from the employees, updated our hand safety policy and management of change procedure, educating and awareness of CANFOR stakeholders, so everyone from senior management to the frontline employees, and then obviously measuring our results versus the goals and involving our safety committee. So we're in that last box right now. It's just kind of engaging the each division to kind of go out and do an audit and to see how everything's working and bring that information back to myself, and then we can do some of the permanent signage, etc. What does the hazard assessment look like? So again, the most important part of this whole process was going down onto the floor and talking to our people to see, what their requirements are, what are the issues they're having out there. So we looked at the task, the job they're doing, all the hand hazards, the current gloves they're using, dexterity requirements. So, what they need to feel, what they need to touch. Do they have an HMI screen? Are they flipping lumber? What requirements do they need? Then we trialed gloves, and then we did some evaluation forms. So everybody that trialed gloves for the specific for the positions, we had evaluation forms that we put back, and you can see in the screen here that that's kind of a compiled information from a whole bunch of different people at different divisions. And then with that worker feedback, we came with some recommendations. Uh, Now I'm going to get into what were the major changes. So what did all of it, what happened after all this? And to keep it simple, we looked at just doing mandatory A4 cut resistant gloves in all operational areas. So just having a standard, because before that we didn't have a cut resistant standard. So an A4 cut resistant gloves in all operational areas, 4 standard issue gloves. So there's thousands and thousands of different types of gloves that you can use. So we looked at what 4 standard issue gloves can we have that you can use in the majority of the jobs, and then people can kind of choose which gloves fit them the best and what they like, and for dexterity and feeling and all that. And then we also have an assigned glove task list. So there's jobs out there, saw file an example that have higher risk and hazard. So we have gloves specifically for that, and I'll quickly go through those here. So here's the 4 standard issue gloves that I'll quickly go over. So we have on the left is a lumber handling glove. It's a thicker glove. It's got a double palm, and it's got, as you can see, the back of hand protection there. The cut level is an A6, so on a scale from 1 to 9, it's on the higher end, and it's got some pretty decent puncture protection as well. 5 is the highest for puncture protection, so it's at a 4, and then the abrasions 4, so it's pretty high. It handles the lumber really well, and people that have those, sawmill stacker, trimmer, J-bar type positions love these gloves because they feel protected. They're a little hot, a little heavy, but uh, it's been a game changer for us for the wood product handling. The second glove there is very similar to the first glove. It doesn't have the back of hand, but it does have arc flash and some heat. So some of our electricians like to use this glove, but people that also that are flipping boards, etc., like that glove. The third glove, Tenactive there, the black glove it's very thin. It's lots of dexterity. It does have the A4 cut level. But it's not really for lumber handling. It's more for people that need to do some fine detail work, but they still need that protection. So we call it kind of like a backhand glove. So if somebody's visiting the site, instead of giving them the old Roper style gloves, we give them those gloves. Because what do you do when you're at a site? You're taking your phone out, you're taking pictures, and so you got to take your glove off. These ones, you can see they have you can run a screen with them. So if you have a job with an HMI screen, forklift operators, or again, you're just running your phone or a tablet, you don't have to take the glove off. You can just keep it on. So that keeps the protection as well. The fourth glove there has that's kind of mainly for a maintenance department. So millwrights, it's got the back of hand protection. It also has the dexterity, and there's a rubber palm there. So those are the 4 main gloves that we say they're in all of our vending machines at all of our sites in Western Canada, and you can go in there and grab those at any size. I'll quickly run on to to our alternate protection. So like we talked, you need enhanced protection for certain jobs, and depending on the position and the way the wood's handling, and sometimes how the person pulls wood and flips it, some of the gloves aren't going to work for them. So we have some alternative protection. So you can see the first glove here. It's an oil block, so it's going to resist water and oil. It's got the back of the hand protection, and it also is a winter version. And then the second glove there is similar to one of our standard gloves. It's just a little bit thinner. So as you can see, we're not just saying you have to use one glove. We have a lot of different options here. For welding and hot work, similar. We got a thinner glove, a middle glove, and a thicker glove, depending on the type of welding you're doing. And there's winter versions available as well. And again, they all meet that A4 cut resistance. Game changer for us, if you're going to take anything out of this presentation, this is something you could take out of it. We've had quite a few cuts and nicks from saws and knives throughout the years. The first glove there is a very thin glove. It's like one of the thinnest gloves that Superior has, and those are the gloves that we use, is from Superior, and it's an A9, so it's the highest cut you can get. And so anybody that I can get this glove on, I'm happy. Paper wrappers use it, bander operators. I got a mechanic that uses it in Creston Mill. And then obviously like anybody that's working around with knives, etc. It's got that A9 and it's 360 degrees, so all the way around the hand. The second glove, another game changer. It's got A9 cut level, so the highest cut you can have, and it's got A5 puncture. So it's the highest puncture. It's a leather glove. It's oil block, and it's actually pretty thin as well. And that's like anybody handling saws. So round saws, band saws, that's going to protect you. And after going through this process and seeing what some of our saw filers were using before we implemented this, it blew my mind. Some like they barely had no protection at all. So to go from that from like an A1 or an A2 protection to an A9 has just been a really big game changer. And then the third glove on there is a cut resistant glove for chemicals, and it's fully waterproof. So some of our saw filers like that when they're cleaning their machines or depending on what tasks they're doing. And then some other protection here is like there's a horsehide glove here that we use for our car blockers that have to prepare the rail cars for transportation. Just a really thick glove that's worked out great for them. Moving on, deviation from standard gloves. So somebody has a job that we maybe overlooked, or they for specific reasons they're having trouble getting their tasks done. We do have a deviation standard, so it's a management and change procedure. What it does is empowers our workers and supervisors to make the changes to the gloves in their departments. So if we have any other issues, we can't really figure something out, we can bring Superior Gloves hand safety specialists. They come in and they'll work closely with us to fill any gaps that we may have missed. Another important part of this program that we noticed was, as we're going through and doing our site assessment, we found that there's quite a few people that have gone years, sometimes 20, 30 years in a sawmill. They've never had a glove that fits them. Either their hands are too small or they're too big. So we actually went with Superior, and we offer gloves from 2XS, so 2 extra small to 3XL. And also our suppliers, like, so we don't necessarily stock the gloves at every mill in every size, but we go to our suppliers. We've asked them to stock our standard gloves in all of these sizes. So it's pretty nice when you get to go to somebody that hasn't had a glove that has never fit them, to say like, hey, we want to get a glove in your hand that fits you, and then they're actually going to wear it too, right? So few other things I'll talk about with Superior gloves. So the beauty of going to another manufacturers is they actually support us with hand injuries for investigating them. Um, so if we have a hand injury and we think it had something to do with the glove, they'll actually say, hey, send us the glove. We want to look at it. We want to see what happened. We want to know what happened. How long's the person been wearing them? What's the wear and tear? All that good stuff. And also prototyping new products. So the way I stumbled into this project, first of all, in our one of our 1-inch mills, we kept getting slivers that were going through the seams of these mitts that we're using, and they're once these slivers were going through, there was 2 people that had to get them surgically removed from their hands. So as you can imagine, that's the last thing we want to do is send somebody to the hospital and then get surgery on top of it. So I approached Superior and said, we need a glove for our industry because there isn't one right now that is stopping slivers from going through. So we're actually on the 6th iteration of these piling gloves, we're calling them. And we've never been closer to having a solution for this, but it's pretty cool that the Superior has a manufacturing facility in Honduras that's working with us to build these gloves. And every 6 weeks we had a new shipment to try out, and there's been some that haven't worked very good and others that have worked great. And I in the next few months, we can expect a piling glove for our industry. So I'm looking forward to that, and obviously stopping our people from getting injured.
Hey, Patrick,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering if I wanted to try and order those gloves, if I told them piling gloves, they'd know what I was talking about.
Yeah, once they're
Oh,
we
can't
give
hear 'em
them the
now.
thumbs up, once we give them the thumbs up, and it becomes like in production, then absolutely we will they will have it in their catalog, and there's also a wood products manufacturing lumber hand guide that they've developed, Superior, that's on their website. And a lot of the work that we did at CANFOR went into that, but it basically goes through every position and has 4 or 5 gloves that they advise that you use for that position. So if you just go, yeah, find a lumber industry uh, hand safety guide on Superior Gloves website. But yeah, absolutely. When this thing's done, they'll be promoting it pretty big to our industry. So the hand safety campaign, again, I'm almost done here, just a few more slides. How did we kind of tie a nice bow on all this? It's a lot of information. We're talking to everybody. So we built a communication hand safety campaign that basically ran 5 weeks. And again, it was more of a marketing campaign, but we introduced the new gloves to the stakeholders through signage and crew talks. Week 2, we did hand safety videos running across CanFor's TV network called DGS TV. Week 3, we reviewed the hand protection policy and the glove management and change rollout, so to management and workers through crew talks. Week 4, we stocked new gloves in all the vending machines. So at CANFOR, I'm not sure about the other companies, but we have all of our PPE are in vending machines at every site. So we took all the old stuff out, put all the new stuff in, and so when somebody went to the vending machine, they could see exactly, all the new gloves were in there. We had signage on the vending machines. Fit testing, we actually had rings that we put a glove of every size for the 4 standard gloves on rings for new employees and existing employees to get fit tested. And week week 5 to 7, 5 to 8, sorry, we just did a little bit more engagement with the different mills as they're all at kind of different different spots of integrating some of these gloves into the system. And then ultimately we we're engaged in the safety committees now, like I said, to go onto their sites, do a glove audit, talk to their people, and then get all the feedback to me. And then I'm going to be going ahead and doing kind of the final permanent signage on this. And we're looking at also creating another LMS course, so our learning management system for hand safety that kind of explains the whole process. Um, the last thing I'll quickly talk about here is, did this work? And so we're just moving into the 6th month on this since we started implementing all the gloves. And I did run some numbers about a month ago, and we've seen a reduction over 30% 30% since November, and year to date it's been a significant lower for the hand injuries compared to the year before. So we're pretty happy. It's been a lot of work, but it did work. So I'm as we move forward and we continue to go into the different areas of our mills, because sometimes somebody's got a box of old gloves that they really love that they're hiding somewhere, like you're always going to find that. But as those gloves and everybody moves on to the new gloves, we're going to continue to see lower rates, and ultimately gloves is the last line of defense, as we know on this call. But it is something that when all of our other systems fail, it does add extra protection. But there is a whole bunch to this that to our hand safety that includes training and ergonomic evaluations and looking at workstations and behavioral safety. So I decided, we just talked about with Bill to just focus on the gloves, but there is a whole bunch of other good stuff that goes along with this. And I'll say the last plug for Superior Gloves is they've really worked well with us, and they do have a book. Like their vice president wrote a book on hand safety that you can order off their website for free, and it really goes through a whole bunch of the hierarchy of controls and all and everything but gloves. But it's a great read if you're interested, and I can definitely put you in touch with anybody at Superior if you want them to come in and look at a solution for your mills. And that is all I had for the
Thanks a lot, Patrick.
presentation.
Anybody have questions for Patrick?
Question, Patrick. When you started out, what was the level of glove that you used in the first place? Did it have an ANSI cut level at all, or?
Not really, no, not officially. I think they say leather has like a 2 or a 3 just built right into it, but maybe a 2. But no, the only glove we had one glove that had cut protection that was on our previous glove hand chart, and it was a level 4. But yeah, other than that, we just had the kind of cheap one size fits all roper gloves that we used for the majority of the positions.
I didn't stick my hand.
Oh, that's all right.
Any more questions for Patrick? Okay, I think that's it for questions. Thanks a lot, Patrick. Like I said, when I first saw the work that you were doing back last summer, I was really impressed with the depth and the level that you went through, especially when you said at the beginning all the work you did with the employees at the floor level. Sometimes we miss those things and we sort of charge ahead and we forget that we need to talk to those people on the floor. So way to go. I really appreciate what you've done to help minimize hand injuries at your operation and with your presentation here today with the industry. So now I'll hand it over to Tom. Tom, if you want to introduce Dave Barry from Resolute Forest Products.
Thanks, Bill, and congratulations, Patrick, and thank you for that presentation. Very informative, and we look forward to hearing more on the results as you get closer to the end of your study.
Thanks.
I'll turn the mic here over to Dave Barry. Dave is the Human Resources Manager for Resolute Forest Products in Thunder Bay, and he is also the outgoing chair of our Forestry Paper Printing and Converting Advisory Committee. We're sorry to see Dave leave. However, Dave has new goals that he wants to work on. I think retirement's one of those coming up soon. I'll turn it over to Dave, who'll provide a bit more information on the work that Resolute has done in relation to a program to reduce hand injuries. And I know, Dave, with the upcoming change within Resolute and being purchased by another company, that I'm sure is impacting on moving this forward as well. But I'll turn it over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's significantly impacting what we do next because right now we are considered hold separate. We are our own entity, owned by Resolute under Domtar under Paper Excellence, but we are just our own facility, and that's it. And what we do for safety is up to us here. But when I brought this up last fall, Resolute had just announced a new requirement for hand safety, and that was keeping hands or prohibiting use of hands as a direct tool. And I suggested to Tom, maybe I could get some more input from others in the industry on this whole concept. And that's why we were going to talk about it in December at our last meeting, but I couldn't make it. And so we're talking about it today. What I will say is this is a Resolute presentation. I'm just going to review it here to kind of give you the meat of what Resolute is doing. There is a standard that goes with it, but I've kind of prohibited now from giving that standard because it's a Resolute standard. And I'm not necessarily Resolute right now, but I think everything is in the presentation. And I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. Now, if I do full screen, can people see that?
Yeah, you're good, Dave.
Yes, we
Yeah,
can see.
we're good.
Good, okay. So management of change, prohibiting use of hands as a direct tool in any component that is an integral part of the design installed on manufacturing equipment. So there's a bit of background around on this. The strategy for Resolute over many years has been to reduce injuries, as all of you are doing at your places of employment. And effectively, you know, rigorous management on the risks is what we want to do. We want to ensure the protection of people because it's a requirement. Hand injuries here just and across Resolute is probably just like all of your industries, and just like Patrick experienced, it's where the highest rate of injury is. So the company decided that new prevention measures had to be put in place. And the part of the body that's our main work tool is our hand. So some historical facts that got to this. In 2008 to 2010, Resolute mandated an action plan to minimize injuries in wood products. And that was prohibiting use of personal knives, installing guards on pneumatic staplers, safety audits, covers, saws while they're being carried, require use of cut-resistant gloves. They went to we went to ANSI 3 or 4 and 5 later, but at that time there were still cut-resistant gloves. Ensuring chains saws are equipped with anti-kickback, round off sharp edges of equipment, provide tools for rotating heads, etc. These are like the whole list, and all the pictures. And I think the presentation was sent out to everybody already. All these pictures are just examples of safety equipment put into effect, and probably stuff that you have done at your places as well. In 2013, 2014, we raised the level on hand safety when it came to gloves, kind of what Patrick is doing now. Identified that level 4 and 5 are our minimum requirements. So 4 is a minimum, and identified 4 types of gloves that would be used. Since then, there's a few other things that came in, like steel mesh gloves inside a cut-resistant 5 when it came to handling slitters, and leather guards for forearms and all the way up the arm when you're dealing anything with slitters as well. In 2014, 2015, we had a directive, and this is how Resolute does it. If there's an incident that requires that we need to make a change across the company, a mandatory corrective measure is put out, a corporate directive. And in this instance, the directive was because somebody was threading a winder and the sheet tore, they ended up cutting themselves on the trimming slitter. And the directive was that we would provide all winder employees with fitted steel mesh gloves to be worn under the ANSI 4 level gloves and ANSI 5 protective sleeves. So I was wrong when I said under ANSI 5, but under ANSI 4. And mesh gloves to be worn under ANSI 4 may be replaced with ANSI 5 gloves, provided they're worn at all times by the winder operators. And this is how we started with these mandatory corrective measures. In 2019, a new standard was put out where we were hands-free on suspended loads. And that meant you could not direct a load with your hands in any manner until you were down to the last inch. And at that time, you can only do it if you have supervision right there watching you. And that's, so say you're putting a roll in a paper machine and you're down to the very last bit of the drop into it, and you might need a hand out of the nip area, but just for final guidance. And that's the only time you can have hands on. So all of our lifting, it requires hands free. Resolute in 2011 had 76 hand injuries for recordable injuries. And down to 2021, we had 16. And as of September 2022, we were going back up. We were going the wrong way. We had 17. So they decided we needed to, as a company, we decided we need to do something. And if we're going to reduce 50% of the hand injuries that we had, we could bring our OSHA incident rate down to 0.44. The goal last year for Resolute was a 0.55 OSHA rate, and we ended up at 0.67 for the year. So we did not meet our goal. And every year our OSHA rate had been going down, in Resolute's opinion, by prohibiting things, work, the way we do work, and putting other tools in effect is the only way we're going to reduce them. So here's some history on hand injuries. I'm not going to read every one, but we had, and I took out the names of the mills so you don't know who they were. Laceration to a right hand index finger that required 4 stitches. Laceration to a middle finger that required stitches. Laceration to a back of a hand. Fracture to a hand to the 3rd and 4th distal phalanxes because the hand got into a pinch point. Excuse me. Laceration to the right hand middle finger requiring 4 or 8 stitches. And if we're not going to change behavior, then we need to change the way we do things. So the general guideline in this directive was, before using their hands involving direct contact with any piece of equipment or material during operation or maintenance jobs, employees shall validate whether a tool preventing direct manual contact designed for the task is available and shall use it if it's existing. If direct manual contact is prohibited to avoid any kind of exposure, the hand shall not be used as a direct tool for releasing, unjamming, striking, etc., and a component or pulling out a component piece that is an integral part of the design. So a use of a distancing grabbing tool is mandatory. Part 3, the definition of those types of situations were given for our wood products, our pulp and paper, and our tissue industry. And I'm not going to read through all those. But the directive was, if a safe job cannot be performed without the use of hands as a direct tool with a component piece that is integral in the design, a safe work permit authorizing direct hand contact with a component piece installed in manufacturing must be completed and signed by a supervisor or lead hand or designated manager. So that involves in this the solid wood products, this safe work permit, identifies hazard risk related to potential pinching, sudden release of energy, being struck, striking against, lines of fire, etc., etc., etc. And it must be a 360 must be completed around that specific control. So they do not apply to hand contact with pieces of lumber or tissue rolls or hand tools and powered tools, bolts of similar materials, seals. It really came down to the last injury where a couple of millwrights were removing a pump and they were using their hands instead of having something under it to lift it. Sorry, excuse me. And it dropped and it pinched the guy's hands. And so it became, that's an integral component. Then you need a tool for removing that. Does not apply, directives 1 and 2 do not apply to final adjustments when positioning a suspended load under our current program, which I mentioned earlier, and manually lifting any part or material, object, tool, or container that an employee may lift manually based on our application for manual maximum load lifting. So you're not necessarily a tool if you removed a grate and you had to put the grate back in. And then I just in the slideshow is an example of the safe work permit that has to be used when you have to use your hands. When this came out, I was hoping that maybe we could just discuss it. Does anybody else have a similar exercise going on, or have you experienced it? Have you tried it? I'm not going to get into all the different examples that are in here. This was more of a training session as well. As far as Resolute or Thunder Bay operation is concerned, we've had enough incidents lately that bewilder us just on our basic PPE non-compliance, that we're changing our focus here, and we're not going to have this hand safety permit right now, but we may look at it in the future. So if anybody has experience with this or they have it implemented in their work sites already, I'd be interested in hearing about it. That's my presentation. Tom, Bill.
Thanks very much, Dave. Quite interesting, very informative. Any questions for Dave?
any experiences out there.
Mm-hmm.
Stu? No? Well, if you do, I'd be interested if you shared it with Tom, even though I'm not going to be on any future meetings, that if you shared it with Workplace Safety North, I'm sure Tom would let me know and
Definitely.
pass that along, because Workplace Safety North does a lot of work in our facility. So
Great. Thanks again, Dave. Really appreciate the presentation. Quite informative. Bill, I guess I'll turn it back to you. We were going to talk about a potential topic for our next meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. If anybody has a presentation or a topic for our next meeting, please speak up. And I want to thank both Patrick and Dave for their presentations. I know that in our end of the country that hand injuries is an important topic for us, and it tends to come up with every operation that I go into as one of the main focuses. So I'm sure we're not finished in addressing these issues. So this all helps.
Yeah, Bill, the only thing I can add is some initial discussions through our committee, and that was suggested I pass them along to your group as well, is potentially looking at contractor safety and contractor safety management as a future topic for one of our upcoming meetings. And you may have some leaders in the group that would be able to share information on that, and we would definitely pull some from our side too.
Okay, yeah, no, that sounds good. That sounds like a good topic. We'll poll and see who's got something that they could share for that. Are there
Perfect.
any
Sounds
other
good.
questions from the participants, either for Dave or Patrick or for Tom or myself?
well, somebody had asked if Patrick's going to share his presentation. Will you do that, Patrick? I think it would be interesting. I'd send it on to Resolute Forest Products for their wood product side.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be shared. I think Bill, I sent it to Bill, so the BC Forest Safety Council will share that, and anybody that wants to reach out to me, my information's on there on the last slide. So I'll be more than happy to have a quick conversation or answer any questions over email.
We also have a recording of the presentation, so if you have anybody that missed it and would like to watch it, if they have the presentations, we can make that available. You just contact Tammy for that.